Evening and welcome to another edition of the Press Box. I'm Brian Carson with my co-host Kenny Varner. Kenny V, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I am doing fantastic. Tonight I am thrilled at who our guest is. We have, they use the word Kenny legend
Hmm.
pretty easy these days, but we have a true living legend in the sport of amateur wrestling on here tonight.
Most
What can
definitely.
I say about him? Um, he had the first, which is awesome, the first wrestling website ever put on the internet. We're going to talk about that. He's a two-time District 6 Man of the Year, broadcaster for many years for Lock Haven, then Central Mountain Wrestling, um, PA Hall of Fame. Geez, the list, I could be here the whole hour listing his accomplishments, but we have the awesomely great Tom Elling on. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming on.
Well, I'll tell you what. When you get old enough, you have a lot of friends, and you get some awards, and that's nice. But most important thing to me in wrestling are the friends that I made along the way. That's just the greatest thing about the sport.
I agree with you. It's like a family, isn't it? I mean, no matter what you are, wrestler, coach, media, once you're in it, it's a family. You're always a part of it.
Right, and you may or may not know, but we have wrestling breakfast twice a year. We hold here in the Lock Haven area, and last May we had to shut it off at 2:07 because we had to cut out 16 people that wanted to come. But we get people from all over. We had a gentleman fly in from Minnesota to attend. We have several national champions coming. Ray Simons has been here. Cale Sanders comes almost every time. Scott Moore, the head coach at Lock Haven, on and on and on. National champs, Bob Fears, who was a three-time runner-up to Mike Caruso. Mike Russell at Lehigh. Bob was at Michigan. And just, so many people come. And as you said, Brian, it's not just wrestlers or coaches. It's media. It's referees. It's people that just like wrestling. So we're pretty proud of how that has been built.
Let's start off. I want to start out with the website, which is so awesome. Your Pennsylvania Wrestling was the very first wrestling website on the internet, the very first one. What I wanted to ask you was, where did that come? Where did you? I mean, this is before the internet really took off. When did you realize that? Hey, the internet could be something really big.
It was, I think, in the latter part of the 80s. I should have written it down. But what happened, and I didn't realize it would be as big as it was, I was in contact with a gentleman from North Carolina, actually, and he said, why don't you develop a Pennsylvania wrestling website? Because Pennsylvania, is so big in wrestling. And I thought, well, I don't know how. I mean, where would I start? So he said, well, I'll give you a little help. You need to learn, the HTML language. So what I did then was I enrolled in a week-long course of HTML, and I had to write my own language. There was no front page around at that time. So I learned basic HTML and put it up that way. And those are the days when you had to limit whatever your web page or your file to eight characters. So that's why PAWRSL came about, and it never changed. But I'm doing more now with my Tom's Wrestling page on Facebook than I do with my PAWRSL. I still need that for certain things, like my Century Club. If any wrestler that achieves 100 wins this season, because on the Facebook you can't use PDFs. At least I haven't learned how to do it, and so I need, anytime I use a PDF, I put that on my PA Wrestle site.
And yeah, we'll talk Tom, your wrestling page, over 14,000 members. I'm one of them. I'm proud to say.
Me too.
just awesome. And all the interaction that's on there. And when did you decide that moving on to social media would be better? You haven't gotten away with the website, like you said, but when did you go over and realize social media could be the platform where I want to have my wrestling stuff on?
Probably 10 or so years ago, and I just like the interaction, and for the most part. Now I've had to ban some users. We have certain rules: no politics, no foul language, no promotions unless they're approved. And I don't like to improve too many. I don't want to become an advertising site or a place where clinics are, it's filled with clinics and all kinds of stuff. And I also no demeaning others, and that's a fine line because we get close to that sometimes, and I have to be careful. But I guess I can be frank here. I had to remove a guy recently because a picture I posted with Jim Jordan in it. Now, Jim was a two-time national champion.
Yes.
Beat John Smith, and he's fabled as a wrestler. So how anyone wants to get political about that's beyond me. But the guy that was kind of nasty about it and thought he should tell me that who I can put on, who I can't. It wasn't anything political whatsoever. It was just kind of a wrestling thing. And the guy was from another state. So, that even added insult to the injury already.
Yeah.
So I said, that's fine. It's my rule. You don't like it. You're free to leave. And I even offered to double his money back for what he paid to get on, which was nothing.
That's he obviously is not a wrestling fan either, because honestly, I'm with you. When I hear the name Jim Jordan, I think wrestling first before politics.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't meant in any light. He just kind of took it that way, and that's fine. That his opinion. He had every right to leave, but I can guarantee you he'll never be back.
There you go. I like that. So let's talk about you. Did you go to high school, Lock Haven?
No, I'm a Shannon Valley, class of '62.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. You were Mo Valley.
Mo Valley, and I was in the infancy of the program. I think it started maybe in 1958, and I was out for basketball in 1959. And we had this new guy in town that came to help with the scouts. His name was Les Turner, and he kind of got me interested in wrestling because he helped with the Boy Scouts, and where the Boy Scouts meetings were held, the wrestling team also worked out. So we'd go to scout meetings, and the mats would be out there, and we got the fooling around a little bit. And I kind of liked the sport. So, and back then you could do this. About mid-season, another student and I, we were on the basketball team, and we decided we had to walk home through the snow about 3 miles. The old days, walk uphill. It really wasn't like that. But we had to walk home. We had to walk by a graveyard, and we said, maybe we ought to try this wrestling, because the wrestling bus would drop us off, within probably 500 yards of our homes. So we decided to go out for wrestling. We did, and we kind of took to it. I'll tell you though, my first match I ever wrestled, I was out for a week. The regular, you're gonna laugh at this, the regular 127 pounder. That's what I weighed at the time. The regular 127 pounder got sick, and I had to fill in. Well, I was a freshman and wrestled this senior who had a stubble beard, and here I am, this kid, no definition whatsoever. And that was the longest minute and 47 seconds I've ever had. So I got decked my first ever. I kind of knew what a switch was, and I knew that a double leg meant you were to attack the legs, but that was about it.
And so after you did that, what was it then that you were like, the passion? Because you don't get involved in wrestling. Wrestling, I think, is, and I'll get your opinion on this, there is no gray area. It's black and white. You either like it or you don't.
Well, it's a love-hate kind of sport. There were several times I thought about quitting because it's just tough. I mean, practicing wrestling is not fun. You can have fun when you're practicing basketball. You can have fun when you're playing tennis, practicing tennis, preparing. But wrestling practice is not fun. And then when you have to cut weight, and back then I had to cut some weight. Later on when I got to college, I did, because I wrestled like 25 to 85 pounds over my weight. But it wasn't fun. And everybody who stays with wrestling for a while, who says they never thought about quitting, I don't think is telling the truth, because it's tough.
Exactly. And what did you end up liking about it that had that appeal for you?
I like the competition. I liked it was one-on-one, and you were responsible for what happened. You could always blame or look. Personally, I could look to blame someone else if I failed on the football team or something like that. Maybe someone missed the block, or maybe whatever. Somebody dropped the pass. But when you're out there on the mat, it's all you. And I think it's a certain pride kind of thing. And my dad would come home. He would go to the Mo Valley matches, and he'd come home and say someone had a fall tonight. And as a kid, you're thinking, fall? I hope he didn't get hurt. Or fall was. And I thought maybe you stood up and someone. I didn't know. I really did not know. I was that ignorant of wrestling. But then as I got into it, it kind of, hey, this isn't bad. And it was never really overpowering, but I thought the technique, and I was around Les Turner, who was a great technician. Boyd Wasilka was the assistant coach. He was a little bit bigger, and so he could teach us some of the bigger moves. But I was about 145 and ended up wrestling 138 in high school. Lost to Adam Waltz in sectionals, and Adam went on to be a state champ that year. So I felt pretty good about that my senior year.
Definitely. And then you went to Lock Haven. Who was the coach then?
Well, we had several. We went through several coaches. Herb Jack was going to retire, and so Charlie Ridenauer came in, the old Penn State wrestler. He stayed for a while, and that's a whole other story. But then a guy by the name of Dave Beaver came in as an interim coach. Then Herb Jack took over, so I had Herb for a while, and then my last year and a half I had Gray Simons. And
everybody should, if you're old enough, and everybody should know who Gray Simons is. But for those listening who don't, how good was Gray?
Well, I'll tell you what. And we had that. I had that discussion with some other guys, and I said very few high school wrestlers today would know who Gray Simons is or was, and that's a shame.
Yes,
he was one of the greatest of all times. And you were out in the mat, and if Gray Simons yelled something out to you, Jerry Swope and I've talked about this. If he yelled something out, a move to make or whatever, you better listen, because this is an Olympian. This is a 3-time national champion, NCAA Division I champion, 2-time outstanding wrestler, 4-time small college champion, all 4 years outstanding wrestler. So, if you don't listen to somebody like that, shame on you.
Yeah, you got a problem. Most definitely. And so I think, well, am I wrong that you wrestled actually like 191?
Yeah, I wrestled 191 and heavyweight. It's because at that time, 191 was an optional weight. So it went from 177 to heavyweight, which was really kind of unlimited back then. And the reason I did was because there was a guy by the name of Jerry Swope at 177.
Oh, yeah.
It was a 3-time national place winner, twice third and once fifth. And he also won NAIA several years. So Jerry, I had to eliminate with Jerry, and he was my workout partner. I really couldn't beat Jerry. Took him down one time. That was probably a mistake. But Jerry was a 2-time state champion from Lock Haven High. Just a great guy.
Yeah.
We worked out Frank Eisenhower, who was a 2-time state champion from Bald Eagle Nittany. We had Bob Metz from over in Huntington was on the team at that time. Steve Hancock from Bellefonte. We had a lot of great guys to work out with. Bob McDermott was eventually our heavyweight. But because I couldn't beat Jerry Swope, I wanted to be on the team. So I weighed about 175 and wrestled 191 and unlimited.
Wow. Way under, huh?
Yeah, what you learn, you don't go underneath those guys, and if you can tire them out and make outside shots and things like that, it worked out fairly well for me. I was 2-time NAIA place winner, was third in the state college conference at 191, 2 years, so it came out pretty well. I owe that all the guys I worked out with and the coaches I had.
Did you ever have to get, like, as you said, heavyweight was unlimited? Did you ever get a Tab Thacker kind of guy that had to go up?
Probably the biggest guy I ever wrestled at that time was probably about 265. I didn't get any.
Okay.
immense guys. No,
So no Chris Taylors or anybody like that.
no, thank goodness.
What were some of your thoughts about college? That experience. I could see you by talking. You still got fond memories of that time.
Well, the guys, I was with a really great team. In fact, at that time, we set the small college national record. We took 10 guys out to, I think it was Terre Haute. It was either Terre Haute, Indiana, or St. Cloud, Minnesota. And we all 10 of us placed. And that was really, we had a solid team. We had Bill Blacksmith, who was a national champion. We had his brother Jim, who was sixth in the nationals. Trent Smith, Frank Eisenhower, as I mentioned. Bob McDermott, who was an Army champion, came in and wrestled heavyweight my senior year, so I could stay at 191. We had Jeff Larson, Bob Larson from Jersey Shore and Du Bois, respectively. Adam Waltz, as I said, I'm trying to think if I'm missing anybody, but we just had a lot of state champs and a lot of talent on that team. And we helped each other. Plus, as you mentioned, and we talked about, we had great coaches, Hub Jack and Gray Simon. So, it was just a pleasure doing that. And at the time, and it's coming back really, but Lock Haven State College Wrestling, it's like LHU now, Lock Haven University, but it was the big thing. And all the student body would come over to watch you wrestle. And that was kind of nice too, particularly if you won, that helped.
Yeah. Being an alumni, what do you think of the job Scott Moore's doing?
I'll tell you what, no one outworks Scott Moore. I think the world of Scott. When I ran regionals, I was a regional director for like 26, 27 years. Scott and his twin brother came into the region at Clarion, and they were so mean and nasty, not dirty, just mean. They would just as soon rip your head off as look at you. My biggest fear with those guys was they would hurt somebody, and I'd have to be semi-responsible there and have the ambulance crew come in and everything. They were that tough. So I've known Scott a long time, even before he knew who I was. And I really do have a lot of respect for the job he's doing, because he's the hardest working coach that I've ever come across.
Nice. They were Franklin, right? Franklin High School.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yep. Very good. And his brother's the head coach at Cleveland State now, Josh.
And they're not doing bad for being little Cleveland State.
Yeah, they've improved. They came close to beating Lock Haven this year.
So, did you ever get involved in coaching?
Oh yeah, I started the junior high program at Lock Haven, and then I took over varsity in 72, 73, and stayed with that for just 4 years, and then moved into some administrative kind of things, and ended up working with the PIAA through Bill Holland.
So there's another accomplishment. You started the junior high program. Nice.
Well, and then, what was nice about it is when I took over varsity, the kids that I coached, I could move up with, so they knew what I expected, and I knew, what they could offer and what their strengths and weaknesses were. So that really helped. And interesting discussion, and I don't even recall who it was now, but it was somebody in the wrestling world that said that's what should happen in every you should rotate every 8 years. You coach 4 years into junior high, move up to varsity. The varsity coach will go back down to junior high, and then that way it would be like the best of both worlds, I guess.
Kenny, I'm sorry. I have a tendency to talk too much.
Oh, that's
I
okay.
had all these questions I wanted to ask Tom. So if you have anything, go ahead.
Sure. When you were wrestling, what was the favorite move of yours that you used?
When I wrestled the upper weight out of my weight class, I'd use an outside single. I never wanted to get underneath the guys, so I would try to set up. I'd fake a duck under to one side, go back and pick the knee at the other, and drop down and then fight the ankle rather than the whole body. So knee and below is where I'd attack. I had a pretty decent arm drag. Again, I didn't finish with a double on that. I would kind of arm drag and go behind and then try to trip from behind. So those are my moves, basic moves as takedowns. And from the bottom, I just wanted to get out of there. So I would stand up as much as I can. And an old buddy of mine and a pretty successful coach, Dave Adams, who was a couple-time state champ for Bellefonte, Penn State, Pitt, Navy, and Dave still attends every national. But Dave once told me and told the clinic, he said, "All you have to do on the bottom, it's the easiest thing in the world to get out. All you do is imagine someone's holding your head underwater." And he said, "You get out of there." And think about it, you do anything, scratch buttons, anything to get out of the bottom. But I used to stand up mostly an inside stand up, which would bring my left leg up where my foot would be up, because most guys that I wrestled at that time would wrestle right-handed, the right arm around the waist. So if I came up with a leg quickly enough, I had a post there where they couldn't just break me down with their size.
Makes sense.
Wrestling's a scientific thing. It's not just all strength or speed. It's a technique. And if you use leverage principles and try to learn a few of those kind of things, which you pick up from all the guys at various clinics, so on, I think it can really help you a lot.
Yeah, my coach was Dick Rhodes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Dick
was on our team too. I didn't mention Dick. Dick was.
Was he really?
He was on our team at Lock Haven. Yeah.
He used to preach leverage a lot, all the time. And he's right. You don't have to have super strength. Yeah, I had the misfortune of being there in Bald Eagle area when they were really becoming good. Really good in 1980s. Like, it's hard to believe. You know what I look like now, Tom. I used to wrestle. I started out at 145.
Well, we're very similar then. When I coached Alan Fisher and the Packer boys were all there, and
Paul and them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was behind Rodney Fisher. So
okay. Well, Rodney was after I got out of coaching, was running tournaments, and Dick Rhodes was still, as you know, very highly successful coach.
Yeah, so I wasn't getting in any starting lineup anytime soon. Unfortunately, but what do you think is the biggest? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just say it's a matter of staying out too, because I think that's what helps make teams. And a couple examples up this, and I'm sure it's true of all teams. But up at regionals this week, Luke Ananio was there. Now Luke didn't compete on the varsity at the districts, but he was there supporting his teams. And this past week, Braylon Porter didn't make the region. He placed, I think, 5th in the region, so he's not going to states. But all this week, he's been at practice, helping his teammates, working out with his teammates.
That's awesome.
It is. I mean, that tells you something about the individual and the sport.
What do you think is the biggest difference between the wrestlers today and from the past?
I think basically it's the rules. I think the great wrestlers from the past would adapt today and be equally successful. But I think it was more of a control sport when I wrestled in the past, and a lot of the guys that my contemporaries, you could get on the ankle and you could ride it, or a tight waist, and you could hang on to that thing for the full 2 minutes, and you wouldn't get called for stalling. There was practically no stalling way back then. So it was more of a control. And, the stronger you were, I think the more it helped back then in high school. But as the sport evolved, I think it's now more technique. There, moves have evolved. It's not more, it's less of a power sport than it used to be when I was in high school.
Another one I think I want to get your opinion on is, back when I started wrestling, and that was in the elementary and that in late 70s, junior high, late 70s, early 80s. We didn't have all these wrestling tournaments that these kids go to now. We had a few, and it was basically the YMCA after that. I think these tournaments and these camps, that's why you're seeing some of these freshmen like Jax Forrest and those guys going to college tournaments and winning them. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think there's much more exposure, but I think that also is a divide. I think you have your elite wrestlers now, and that's great for them, and they can do that sort of thing, and they want to dedicate their life to that, and I can't disagree with that. If that's their choice and their parents' choice, hey, go for it. But what it does do is it prevents the average kid, the kid that wants to play football and baseball and do some things like that, and not spend his whole life wrestling. I think that deters him. So I think that's one of the reasons you see the squads diminished in numbers these days, because kids just don't want to put it. The average kid, I probably wouldn't. I love baseball. That was my number one sport. I just loved to play baseball. I was a big Pirates fan, and when I went to Forbes Field way back then. That was one of the biggest thrills of my life. I cut school only once, and that was to see Bill Mazeroski hit that home run to win it.
Oh wow!
Nice.
The big thrill was, I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago now, I got to have dinner with Bill Mazeroski, and we got to chat. So that was one of the biggest sports thrills of my life, I think.
I'm sure, and that was a good time to cut. If you're going to cut school, do it for that. When did you start broadcasting?
Probably about 1978. I had been out of coaching a couple years, and Harris Lopez was starting. Harris was the one. I think he was the first broadcaster ever to do wrestling in the state.
Was that John's dad?
That's John's dad, yeah. And he was getting a little older. He didn't want to go to quite as many things. So the first one I ever did, I think, was the top hat. So he said, well, you wrestled. Why don't you go and help John out a little bit? So I did in '78, and I was unsure. I'd never done it. I was an English major, and giving speeches and stuff wasn't anything new. But so I went and got into it, and then learned that you don't just show up and just spout the names, that you have to do a little research. You kind of have to know the kids and the opponents, and I think the more that you do that, the better and more at ease you are behind the mic.
You've seen a lot, obviously, but what are some of your fondest? I'm putting you on the spot, but some of the fondest memories you broadcasted.
Oh boy! Well, first let's go back to one of the best match I ever witnessed, and that was Henry Green and Jimmy Carr on the Jabomoskan Regionals. Anybody that was there will tell you that was a match that was nonstop from the opening whistle, and it went overtime. It was called overtime back then. They just went back and forth, and Henry Green finally won that, and the future Olympian or next year Olympian Jimmy Carr lost in the regions, and Henry Green.
And Green was the state champ for Huntington.
Right.
And Carr, was he Erie Prep or Tech or
Erie East?
Erie East,
yeah.
Okay.
But it was just, and I kind of take the Erie teams now, as you see, they come down and they're really diminished. They've lost several programs over the years. And I think the division, and particularly when the District 12 schools came in, now we have fewer and fewer AAA teams. And this past year, Belfont going to AA, Clearfield, Phillipsburg, and Bald Eagle, who had gone to AA. St. Mary's went to AA this year. So I think that has diminished the District 6 tournament quite a bit, and the Northwest AAA regionals as well.
Do you think they're going to combine us, district, like with a 6, since we only have 6 teams?
I think that's the way to go. I think that's the wave of the future. What the holdup was there is districts don't want to lose their identity, even though District 6-9 started out that way. They were 6/9 back when Dave Adams and Ron Pfeiffer and those guys wrestled. So I'd like to see that. In fact, I'd like to see 4, 6, and 9, part of 9 anyway, combined and have an East section. And I'd like to see the West with 10 and 8 combined, and they would have a Western section, and then send the top 5 from each section into the regionals. So you have to combine districts that way, that you could send. And that way, you're sending a top 5. District 8 may have, which I think they're really improved this year from what I saw, but they may have just send 3 guys instead of their. What was it this year? 3 times 13. They could send 39. So, and they may only have 3 that would go through the District 10. But that way, I think you get the best kids there. You wouldn't have kids coming in, or very few anyhow, with losing records.
Right, because you had that. Yeah, I'm not going to say his name, but there was a kid that came into the regionals. I'm sure you saw that was 1-12
Yeah, yeah.
at regionals.
That shouldn't be.
No, not 1-12.
Well, you know, a long time ago, you used to have a 500 record to get into the districts, and I'm not saying that's
I didn't know that.
Yeah, way back. But I'm not saying that's the way you should go. But you know, 1-12, does that person really belong? No, not
No.
in a region.
No, not at all. Central Mountain.
Mhm.
I want to bring this up. They lost 53-3 to Becca at States, and you saw what's going on with Faith Christian and Notre Dame Green Pond and Double A, and you're going to have McCourt next year. Do you think they should be separate state championships?
Well, that's a tough question because the first answer is legally it can't be done. I think it was 1973. Allentown Central Catholic. They were separated back then. You know, it was the Catholic state championships and the public state championships separated. Allentown Central Catholic had a great basketball team, and a Pennsylvania legislator from that area wanted them in the PIAA tournament because they were undefeated, beating everybody. So he brought it before the legislature, and they got it in that the Catholic schools had now become part of the PIAA. So that passed, and it was a state law. So everybody gets confused, and they think, well, the PIAA could easily solve this by making two divisions. Well, legally, they cannot. They would be the subject of many, many lawsuits which they could not win because of discrimination. So that's number one that people really need to understand. Okay, so they say, well, the PIAA should lobby. You know, okay, well, maybe they should, but I think people that have more power are the voters, and you should lobby your own particular legislator if you want to change. So you know, that's a long way, and I'm not sure I answered the question. Let's just say it can't easily be done as people think.
Right.
It would be, and I do not think it's fair. You know, I'll say that too, because if you can pick the best of the best, and you really can't blame a kid if he wants to go to a better wrestling school, because as an analogy, what penalty do you give the trumpet player that wants to transfer from, let's say, Mifflin County to Carlisle? What penalty does that trumpet player have? Nothing.
Right. Nothing.
Right.
So you know, so I have mixed emotions about it, and I think I don't think it's fair. And as a coach, I'm looking at the kid that came up through my program. He's been there for 5 or 6 years, been very solid, very dedicated. Now all of a sudden I go out and find this all-world 133 pounder, and this kid sits the bench now because someone new came in that could beat him, you know, and stay threat.
Right.
Does that make me a great coach because I'm a great recruiter? Maybe in college, but you know, I don't think I don't like it in high school. You know, I'm not sure how to get around it, but that's just my opinion. And I, you know, because I can develop an all-star team and coach it, heck, anybody could do that. So I don't think you should take vows that you're this great coach because you developed this all-star team that you recruited. But again, I go back to the other thing. I have mixed feelings about it. I'm ambivalent. You know, you can't deny a kid from going to where he can be the best he can be.
Right. I took the words right out of my mouth, but I agree with you. Don't be calling yourself a great coach when you've got like you said, an all-star team put together. I've been using, not to pick on them, I've been using Faith Christian as an example. I mean, I know rankings are subjective, but they have 11 of their 13 kids are state ranked, and they have 2 of the top junior high kids in the country coming up next year.
Well, from what I've heard, and I don't know the whole backstory, but I hear Faith Christian's probably the least causes the least violation. I understand that most of their kids came up through their junior high program. Where they came from before that, I'm not sure. And if they're all homegrown, you know, then hey, more power.
Well, then yeah, they deserve all the credit in the world. Then,
Yeah, so I'm not sure that's a great example right now, but some of the other schools that have kids coming in from New Jersey or whatever, that's sure they're going to be good. Sure they're going to be.
And
And one of the things is, hey, you have to suck it up as coach and say, okay, well, let's just get better.
yeah,
But we need what we have better. And I'd like to see a couple. I'd like to see a separation division. But what I really would, when we can get into team wrestling from this transition into that, I would like to see 3 classifications for team wrestling and 1 for individuals. The individual, no matter whether he goes to Bald Eagle area or Altoona or wherever, he's going to be good and he's going to do well against anybody. So, 1 division. But California, they're bigger than we are, probably 3 times bigger. They have 1 division. New Jersey.
Jersey does too.
But team-wise, you have certain small schools that they're not going to ever develop that 13 kids or 11 if we would get the weight classes I'd like to see. I think we need to reduce them because of the reduction in team rosters. But that's another argument for another day. But your small schools right now do not have a chance even in AA and your smaller AAA because you're battling a huge population and a lot of percentages say that the larger the population, you're probably going to get more physical talent.
Kenny, you have anything you want to say?
Oh yeah, who was one of the best wrestlers or the best wrestler you've ever covered or coached?
Putting
him on the spot.
Well, my only state champion was John Eichenlaub, and John was the kind of kid that could. He's no longer with us. He was the kind of kid that could pin anybody anytime. In fact, he had a pin in the state finals in 1975. So and I was getting calls from everybody, Oklahoma State, Iowa. I don't want to go there. He ended up going to Penn State, and didn't do real well there. But again, that's another story. And but he was one of the most talented. Skip Bolin, who wrestled at Pitt. Dave Adams often told me that if Skip had not been, he and Bill Bailey from Clearfield were on the Pitt team, and if they were in an automobile accident and Skip kind of banged up his knee, and Dave had told me that had he not banged up his knee, he would have been a contention for being a national champion. So he was another one. Greg Larson, who was just heart and soul. He would go out. He was one of those kids that did not rest a second in practice. He gave you everything he had every time he was on a mat, whether it was practice. So, he had to rank up there too. Steve Geis, who ended up being a running back for Penn State, he was one of my really good guys. Again, if I told him to run through a wall, he would try it. He would do it. So I think that as a success as a coach, I think the number one thing is if you get the kids to believe in you, even if you tell them something wrong, it'll work because they believe in you and they believe it'll work. So, that's kind of my offhanded assumption and assessment of coaching.
The sport today, what are some of the challenges you think it's facing? And do you think girls wrestling could actually help grow our sport?
I think it's kindled a new interest for sure. And we just had over the weekend 2 girls win in a boy against boys in division. Sierra Chiesa from Northwestern up in Erie area. She won District 10 AA. And Lecty Streckerly from Lake Lehman, who is in the Ultimate Warrior, and she pinned and defeated several boys. She won a district championship. She'll be going to regionals. So they have the talent. But I really like girls wrestling because I don't like girls wrestling boys. I just don't like it. I look to myself back as a 9th grader. If I'd had to wrestle a girl, I probably would have quit the team because you can't win. I was kind of shy and backward then, and if a girl had beat me, or even if I had to wrestle a girl and got teased about it, I would not have liked it. Now, I understand times have changed, and that's not as big a factor anymore. But I still think girls should have their own division. And we talk about the virtues of wrestling, what it does for our young men, how it makes them men, and how they develop friendships and so on. If that's true, why isn't it true for the girls? Right. So I think all the virtues we talk about should be both ways. But I like it separately. and I think the girls deserve the chance in their own right. Sarah McMahon was originally from Lock Haven. You know, Sarah won I think it was a silver medal in the Olympics. She
Yeah.
was now she did that. She moved. I think it was to Maryland where she wrestled, but she had moved away. But I taught her mother in English. She was Paula Goodman, but Sarah, you know, is a perfect example of what she accomplished and what you can accomplish. And all the Olympians were at our PA chapter of the National Hall of Fame banquet 2 years ago. Adeline Gray came in, and you know, and it was just terrific having them there. Just great personalities and great athletes. So you know, what's good for guys is also good for girls.
What do you think? Any ideas? Your thoughts on growing the sport?
Well, we have to make some changes. I think you know, number one. I think this electronic ticketing is not a good thing. I understand why they do it. You don't have the cost of getting the printing. You don't have as many ticket takers and so on. And even though there wasn't a whole lot of it, you eliminate any chances of fraud. You know, someone selling two tickets, the same two tickets, and all that kind of stuff. I think it's easier to handle and all that kind of stuff. But if you go to a big tournament in the stand, you look in the stands, you don't see many 21 to 30-year-olds in the stands. There's some, but the majority of fans are the older people. And a lot of the older people don't have cell phones or don't know how to use them properly if they have to order the electronics. So I think that hurts. That's one thing that I think we need to take a look at that. The other thing is I think we need to bring back the old dual meet. That has to be the big Friday night dual meet, like Lewistown versus Chief Logan, Lock Haven versus Bald Eagle area, those kind of things, because those are sellouts. Even you're not going to get any new fans if you go to a dual meet tournament where the team wrestles 5 times and they have to sit in the stands. You're not going to get a lot of fans if one time the starting weight's 113, the next time they go it's 152. You know what's going on. You know, you're not going to make any new fans. So that's a big problem. We need to get a little more consistent, and we need to realize that we as coaches are our own worst enemies. Sure, you wrestle 5 teams in one day at one location. There's one bus expense. You just have the officials there, you know, and it's selling the tickets and so on. It's a lot more convenient, but is it good for wrestling? And you know, the kid that's new and goes and gets pinned or thumped 5 times probably isn't going to be out next year. May not even be out next week. The kid that's getting 5 wins, great. He's getting those wins, and that's helping him. Maybe helps the seeds and all that kind of stuff. But no matter how good he is, he's still getting bumped and bruised. You know, you can't wrestle 5. It's a physical sport. You can't wrestle 5 matches, even with quick pins, without getting bumped up a little bit. So I think we need to look at that. We did get it reduced, to where you can only have 2 of those in a season. But I really think, and it's probably not popular with coaches for a lot of reasons, but I think we really have to revisit the big dual meet, our town versus your town, because you'll get new fans that are eager because the build up, all the attention, everybody's talking about it. I think it sure beats no new fan, and no one other than parents or super dedicated fans and grandparents are going to go sit for 6 hours and watch 5 dual meets in a gym with 3 or 4 mats down. You don't know what the score is half the time. You don't know who's wrestling who's wrestling whom half the time. So we've got to look at it more from a fan's perspective and bringing in new fans rather than what is immediately good for us in our seating.
I got to ask you now a Central Mountain question. Perry Manville have had 3 great matches. I want to know why you think Dalton why he is not staying away from going down.
Well,
when you know how Manville rides, I was actually surprised in that finals this past weekend when he chose down. I thought he would stay neutral.
But no, I think choosing down was the right thing, and that's what's beaten him. That the difference in the two is that Perry can't get away on the bottom. Manville is just right with him every step, every move, and all that, and he can't get away. So the secret is, if you want to have success, you've got to be able to get off the bottom. Neither wrestler. There was a takedown for the first time there, but I think it was kind of like a counter takedown.
Yeah.
But the wrestler up to that time when they faced each other, and I think that was maybe the fourth time, at least three times, but neither one had a takedown. The match in the King of the Mountain went to the ultimate tiebreaker. It was tied 1-1, and was tied again after the overtime. So they went to the ride out, and Manville chose top and rode that extra 30 seconds, came away with the win. So they've all been very, very tight. Same thing with the Walliser and Cunningham. All those matches, with the exception of the 9-5, and Walliser was coming back there, but all those prior to that had been like 1-point decisions. So it's a matter of and frankly, sometimes you just have to give credit to the other kid. I think those kids are just absolutely outstanding, as are the ones that we mentioned from Central Mountain. And you never know. When you get into a bigger tournament now, you're going to have Colin Rath in that mix and a couple other names we could bring up. So, you don't know if you could say, well, they're probably going to meet in the finals. They certainly be separated in the brackets, but, it depends on the luck of the draw and who's up, for those 4 matches.
Yeah, that's a pretty tough weight because I don't know if. Well, yeah, you did get a look at him because he wrestled Perry. Colby Saylor from Hickory's pretty tough too.
Yeah, Saylor's tough. Perry needed a takedown in the last, I think, 30 seconds to win that one. Earlier, Luke Simcox had beaten in the Ultimate Warrior, who won 6-0 over Saylor, and I think he had a 4-point move or something to jump out in that. So Central Mountain's 2-0 against Saylor, but yeah, you can't count him out. The kid from Hickory, he's pretty tough.
Anything you're looking forward to down at States? Any particular wrestler or any match you're hoping to takes place?
No, just the ones that we mentioned. I think 33 and 39 are probably the two toughest weight classes in the tournament.
I agree.
Again, you'll need to take a look at what else happens. I mean, you look at like the Fassick kid from Altoona. You look at him sometimes and you think nobody's going to beat him. He's just so quick and explosive and that stuff. But then if you have an off move, or maybe you're down a little bit, or whatever happens, then all of a sudden, hey, whatever happened to this kid? And you wonder. But he came back and got third. But he's one of the kids that I think could be an underdog, somebody to watch. Caleb Fassick from Altoona at 127. He's very, very good. And of course, the Cunningham boy is going to be difficult to beat there too. But I think our region, our Northwest AAA region, and the Southwest AA will have a lot of wrestlers on the podium when all the dust clears down at Hershey.
Yeah, absolutely. This week's AA. Are you going to be following that or going to that at all? Or
yeah, I'll be the state. When I go to states, I'm there for every match. So
I meant AA. I'm sorry, AA region. Southwest.
AA region. Oh, I'm sorry, misunderstood you. No, I won't be there this week. I was just offered 3 tickets to the Big Ten, but I had to turn them down because this time of year I have this off weekend, and my granddaughter's wrestling in Maryland, so I'm going to try to get down there. If the big snowstorm doesn't hit, I'm going to try to get down to Maryland this weekend and watch her wrestle. So that's where I'll be.
Oh, your granddaughter wrestles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome.
Is this elementary thing or?
No, she's in 8th grade. And,
okay.
Yeah, she's fairly tall, thin, very wiry, strong girl, very quick. She's athletic. She's an outstanding baseball player. So I think she'll do well. She just started wrestling this year, but she's picking it up quickly. And when we visit, she'll ask me some things, and we'll try to go over it. I think one of the biggest mistakes a young coach makes is trying to teach too much too soon. I think you need to concentrate on a few moves, perfect those, get those down, then move on, because you show them 30 moves and they're just more and more confused. So you need to keep it basic. Now,
I know you go to states all the time. every match. And Central Mountain, which is your main team that you broadcast and everything, should do pretty well down there with those big three you got with Sim Cox, Wallizer, and Perry. Any other State College should do well. Any other District 6 team, and that could be on the AA side too. You're looking to make some noise.
I'm looking. Well, let's stay with Tripway for right now. I think the two kids from Altoona are very outstanding.
Stipes and Weaver, yeah.
I think they have a good chance, and they're one's a freshman and Sipes is a sophomore. I think we have a lot of talent in the classmen. I think Pavlechko from State College. The only wrestler in Pennsylvania that's beaten him this year has been Riley Robel from Bishop AA, returning defending state champion at 285 from Bishop McDevitt down in Harrisburg area. Those are his only two losses. So I think he'll do well, but he has. I think he'll get to the finals, and he has Kinney, who is much bigger, from Nazareth, and of course coached by Dave Krause. So they'll be ready too. But I think Pavlechko will do very well.
Agreed.
On the other side, AA, I like Cone Baney. I like the 20 Lucas Phi. I like the way he's wrestling now. He has a lot of confidence. Those two in particular, the Baney kid, the cousin up in West Branch, I think he's doing well too. Let me think who else. I don't follow AA as closely, so after this weekend, I'll know a little bit better. But it'll be a rough regional tournament. But Penns Valley, Ty Watson has done an outstanding job. He's the name that pops out immediately from that team. As I said, I'll know more when I review the Southwest this weekend. But I think for both AA and AAA, as I said earlier, I think you're going to see a lot of our area kids, District 6 kids, up pretty high on that podium in a lot of weight classes.
I agree. The one I would like to see in AA this weekend is Rune Lawrence.
Oh, yeah.
That kid, he pinned his way through District 7. I mean, he's just, his brother Fame, we know that. 2-time state champ, but Rune could be 4.
Yeah, Rune's a very, very tough kid. And, we talked about going back to AAA a little bit. A AA team that wrestles AAA, Waynesburg, they have a few pretty good kids too. Mac Church, jumps right out to that.
Oh, yeah.
So they have some. But we could probably go up and down the list and, someone said, okay, well, who do you think will win this and all that? Well, you have your favorites, and Church would be one of them. But, when we talked about Mac Church, Colin Rath went up a weight class to meet him and beat him 4-3. So this Rath kid may be the most dominant wrestler in the state right now.
Yeah, I agree, and he beat Perry
1-0. Yeah,
and I believe he beat Manville too.
Yeah. So yes, he did. Yeah.
So he's beaten 3 state champions this year.
I think he's beaten 5. There was
Up 5.
He wrestled. Yeah, not in that. I think he's beaten 5 from what I've heard. I can't tell you.
Wow. So yeah, you knew he had the talent. I believe he was 3rd last year as a 9th grader. So
yes.
I wonder if he's from Jersey.
I don't know that. I don't know what home school.
We know Becca likes the Jersey kids.
Well,
Tom, I know you know everybody. You got to stay out of that. But
both Karam guys, Bethlehem Catholic and Jody at Easton are Lock Haven grads. They went to Lock Haven's state college and wrestled, did well. So yeah, I have to make a point, and I do like getting everybody, your competitors, and I think overall the tough wrestlers, you wrestle a tough schedule, you wrestle tough people, it makes you better. So I don't think we need to shy away from anybody or anything. We need to go after the tougher our opponents are, the tougher we become.
If Perry gets Manville again, and you were the coach, what advice would you give for Perry for getting out of the bottom?
Well, it's almost too late to work on a Granby roll, but I think that was one thing I try to do. But he's got to be able to get his hips out in a stand up. He needs to stand up. He almost was out a couple times, but Manville's so quick and so strong that he had trouble breaking out of there. But I think maybe altering it a little bit. We used to do a long sit out. I think that might be something to set something up. You see, Walleyes are doing that to work his rolls. But I think that would be one thing. And then I think he really needs to get a takedown. I think if he can get a takedown, I think that's the whole key. Getting out has been a problem. That's the number one problem. But if I'm coaching, okay, we've got to do more setups. Perry uses a lot of double leg blast, single leg to double leg, pretty much straight on stuff. I'd put a little motion in it maybe and try to get him to fake one. I use different setups. I'd work on some of that stuff. But again, it's late. It's pretty hard to change a style this late.
Yeah.
But I think the takedown, if you can get a takedown, that's the key.
That sounds like coach talking there. We know Elling knows his stuff. There you go, Perry, if you're listening.
Oh no. He has good coaches. I don't mean to.
Oh, I know. Biff and Buckwalter still helps, I believe.
And Steve Krause, a whole group. Mike Brown's in that group. Dylan Caprio. They have what I call a Division I coaching staff. They're very solid, very deep with.
Krause was a state champ, wasn't he?
Who?
Krause.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that he and Steve Toba are. Steve Tobos, and I don't know if you know the story of Steve Tobos. They call him Turbo. You know that story? He was in Afghanistan. He's a SEAL, and he was in Afghanistan, and some of his buddies were pinned down by sniper fire. He went back to save them, got his leg shot off, and has an artificial leg. But just the courage of what he's done. And he claims wrestling was what did that for him. But he went back and got his comrades out of there.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah,
I did not know that story. Very interesting. Well, he's a tough guy. You don't be a SEAL without being tough.
Yeah, he's exactly right. Yeah. His dad was very active. His dad was a state trooper in the area. And that's Steve Sr. And, he no nonsense kind of guy.
Kenny, you have anything you want to ask Tom?
I do. It's kind of an off-the-wall question. This is coming from a basketball guy, so if it sounds too
Tom, he said basketball.
Do you ever see wrestling ever adopting the ride-out points like they do in college?
I'm glad you asked that. I don't see them doing that, but Mark Billett, do you know Mark Billett, the old coach at Latrobe?
I know of him. I don't know him.
Okay. Well, Mark has what I think is an ingenious kind of thing. And rather than a riding point in high school, it's called a control point. It's simply what it means is if you ride your opponent for the full 2 minutes, it's a control point. You get 1 extra point for doing that. And then if he rides you for the 2 minutes, he gets a point. But if you get out in 1:59, no points given. So you don't need a clock operator. You don't need a riding time clock.
I like that.
You go with what you have, but if you ride them out that full 2 minutes, I like it too. I think
that's ingenious because I've always been preaching for riding time, but I understand how difficult it is, get new clocks and all that. But wow, that's a good idea. You get the 2 minutes. Because I do think, and I know you do too, Tom, a kid should be rewarded if he can ride a guy out an entire period.
Absolutely. You need to work that. Now, you're working for the pin. You'll still have your stalling calls and that whole thing if you're riding parallel. And that's another one of my pet peeves. The guy on bottom always gets stalled when the guy on top's overpowering him. You surely know the difference. But, if you're riding parallel, not going for the pin, you should get called for stalling. And but if you're trying to actively work things, you can't quite turn the guy because he's too tough. He won't go over. You're close a couple times, but you ride him out that whole period. You control him. You get a control point.
That's a great idea. You said that was Mark Billett.
That's Mark Billett's idea. I can't take credit for it, but I endorse it.
Yeah, I do too. That is very good.
Yeah, what
So
we
let's
need to
get.
do. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, let's get it done.
Well, I think we need coaches to take a look at things, and Neil Turner, used to advocate getting a lot of ex-coaches that have no skin in the game to get together and talk about what can we can do to improve wrestling. What are the things? And no idea is a bad idea, kind of thing. Throw it out there. Take a look at it. If we don't like it, then we'll drop it. But there have been a lot of things that have happened that way. For instance, back when Oklahoma State was getting all the takedowns, two and let them go, get one, and all that kind of stuff. That would be in the early 60s, very early 60s. The first takedown was worth 2 points. Anyone after that was only worth one. So, and that was a bad idea, but they tried it. The other thing was if you rode a guy for 2 minutes more than he had, you would get 2 points. And again, I think that's overemphasizing the riding. So I think that was a bad idea, but they tried it. So let's try these things, or suggest them. See if the majority thinks it's a bad idea, toss it out. But if not, let's give it a try. And again, no idea is a bad idea.
I wanted to ask you one other one. I like it. I'm not, maybe not for high school, but college. I like the step out point in freestyle.
Yeah, I like it to a point, but what you get sometimes, you get a big guy, strong guy, just pushing, not trying to get anything. So, I'm not sold 100%.
Because I mean, the reason I like it a little bit is it keeps, you see that there's guys that will just wrestle at the edge of the mat, so they can get out.
Yeah, it creates action. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the guys that play the edge, you don't like that because you get in on. But sometimes you need to make what I call smart shots, not necessarily takedown shots or whatever. But if you're near the edge and your back's to the boundary line, out of bounds line, sometimes you need to turn it and then make a double leg where shot clearly takes you both off the mat. What that does is it puts in the mind of the referee, yeah, you're being aggressive, you can't get called for stalling, but it also means if you make a bad shot, you're not going to get penalized for it. You're not giving up. So sometimes you have to wrestle smartly. That said, I'm all for wrestling in the center of the mat. Use your technique, use what the coach taught you, use what you do best. Go out there and take the guy down and leave no doubt about it.
Anything you would like to promote, sir? Anything going on?
Well, one thing we're talking about, it's a big topic on my site, is the equity and when you schedule the regional tournaments. And I think a lot of that has to do with facilities that are available and, the number of teams you have to do. So that's a big consideration. So I understand that. But I do think everybody should be on the same playing field. Your regionals should all take place the same weekend. And if you want an extra week off, that's fine too. But everybody's on an equal playing field. I don't, depending on how you look at it. If you're banged up, those extra 2 weeks are great, and it gives you more time to work on your technique and anybody you're going to face, stuff like that. But on the other hand, if you're banged up, you can heal. It gives you time to heal. On the other side of the coin, the guys come in from 1 week, they may be more banged up than you are, and you have the advantage because you've had that extra rest. So it depends on how you look at it and what transpires.
Right.
That's pretty much all I have to say about that. But I think we need equity in that. And again, the team states, the team championships, we need to take a look at that. When you get like, I don't know what, 2,000 total people or whatever, something to that effect down at a state team dual meet tournament, something's wrong. We need to, and you're paying a whole lot for the arena. We need to revamp that, take another look at that. And what I'd like to see done is you wrestle more of your matches as you do the pigtail. In other words, the better seeded team, like the 3-3 would wrestle a 6-1 or whatever, like that would be. I'd like to see that carried out a little bit further, where you get down to the last maybe 4 teams in each classification. You may remember Bolivia won the first one in 1999. Yes. Okay, and that was just 2 teams done in the old arena at Hershey, and that drew quite a few. and all the way along. They didn't have to travel as far, but Bald Eagle the week before beat. Let's see, I think it was a team. I don't know if it was Cannonsburg. I can't remember what team it was from the WPIL, but that was an outstanding match. They had a shutout in the state finals, but the semifinal match against the WPIL team I think it was McGuffey maybe, but it was really an outstanding match, and that brought a big crowd. They didn't have to travel as far, and unless you're a local team down there or you have a great following, you're not going to get great following, and consequently, the ticket sales will go down, and you're not going to be able to support it. So we need to take a big look at the team setup.
Yeah, that always surprises me down there when you go down the state duels, because I've been down many times when Mifflin County qualified and how empty the Giant Center is. It's just as big as high school wrestling is in this state, but when it comes to state duels, it's empty. It's an empty stadium.
And that's for a number of reasons too, because first of all, I think the hotels in the area, jump the prices up. You're going to take advantage of that kind of thing. Secondly, chances are that your team wrestling, you're going to have some outstanding individual wrestlers. So now after you pay to stay, Thursday, Friday, maybe Saturday down for the team, now you're coming back. You have your district tournament where you may or may not have to have hotel bills, but you have meals. You go to regionals where most teams are going to have travel and hotel expenses, and then you go to individual states, and you're talking about 3-4 nights there with paying hotel bills of, let's say, I'll be very charitable here. Let's say it's $150 a night for 4 nights, and all the meals and everything. Plus, when you pay your tickets, it becomes a matter of pick and choose. You're going to have to pick which ones you're going to go to. So the poor little sister, I think, is the team championships. People will like to skip those just because simply the gas, the hotels, and the meals, price of tickets add up, and people just can't afford it.
See, this hour went by too quick.
Oh, has it been an hour already?
Yeah, it was. Wow. I mean, it's just crazy how I could spend all night, but I know you don't want to spend all night, Tom. One thing I did want to ask you though is, what did you think of AA, AAA districts together this year?
I had mixed feelings about it. I liked it because I got to see wrestlers from both AA and AAA. And the only real dislike, I think it was too long for AAA. AAA was extended. They had to wrestle a certain time, then, a big break, a long break in between. I kind of didn't like that. But I didn't think I was going to like it at all. But I did like the fact that, I was able to watch both and follow fairly well. What I really didn't like about it, and what happened at the Northwest Regionals this week too, is the flow performance. You're able to see formats as you're doing broadcasting and kind of identify who's out there. There's no announcer.
Right.
No announcer. So, but then it fails. The flow thing fails, and you get to see just one mat. And unless you know who the kids are, the uniforms of the coaches, then you can't identify. You might be missing 2 really quality kids that you wanted to see, and you're unable to see it. And now if Flo doesn't, if they keep dropping the ball in that, there's no PA announcer anymore to tell you now wrestling on mat 3 and to give you the name, and they don't go down the list of winners. So again, the older folks, they're not going to carry a laptop with them or a iPad. They might have a phone, but they probably don't want to fumble with it in the stands. You're crowded. So, I'm kind of in favor of including a PA announcer along with everything else because, technology is wonderful when it works.
When it works. I agree with you. I miss the announcer going on deck and then wrestling on mat, because you're right. I was looking at it just like you did. We were up there broadcasting, and all of a sudden there's only one mat working on flow. It's like, well, who's coming where? and you're right, with no announcer to tell you what to do, you have to hurry up and look at bout numbers, and it's just.
The other thing I liked about it was that we got to announce, and with the AAA end of it, we got to announce more bouts from all over the area, so we could announce the Mifflin County bouts as well as the State College and Altoona and so on. So it gave us a chance, to give those kids some airtime too. And I know you were there, and Mifflin County was listening to you, but there may be somebody somewhere, in that area that accidentally tuned into us. But there'll be like people that wanted to follow, and we have our sponsors from the Central Mountain area, and we owe that our obligation to them and our kids, so they come first. But I think bringing up the other kids and mentioning what they're doing and broadcasting their moves are important too.
Right. Any final, Tom? It's been fantastic. You have to come back, please. I mean, it has. I don't want to take up all your time. I could keep asking questions to you all night. I mean it. So please come back whenever you want to come back. You're welcome.
I thank you for having me, and I hope you have a big listening audience, and I hope if they disagree with me that they let you know.
They're not allowed to disagree with you, Tom.
I'm sure some do, but that's the beauty. You can discuss it. As I said, no idea is a bad idea. I might throw something out. Someone comes up with something better, such as Mark Millett, for instance.
Yes, I love that. I love that. That would be a great role. I didn't even think of that. That would give. I'm always preaching about riding time point, and that would do away with even, like you said, without even having to keep a time on it. Ride them out, get a point.
Yeah, experiment for a year. Why not?
Right.
Any final words, sir?
I think we've covered pretty much everything. We talked about girls wrestling. I talked about my preference. Again, I'll get a lot of static on this, but reducing the weight classes even further to 11. You have to have an odd number. And again, it's because of the numbers and because of the fans. They're not going to come if something's going to be drawn out. And the dirtiest word in wrestling is forfeit. That forfeit is worse than a 4-letter word. We've got to get rid of the forfeits. And the only way to do that, we have to get more kids out. And there's no one easy answer for that. But I think I touched on the fact that several of your average kids or kids that just want to come out for wrestling to help out aren't coming out because they can't keep up with the elites. And it's helping the elites, and that's great for them, but it's hurting the overall roster number. So anyhow, that's my view on it.
Anything of yours that you would like to promote?
Well, I did do Legends of Wrestling cards, but I no longer do those. They're like baseball cards. I did them with the number of our. I did 7 series, a number of that. But every year
I remember them.
I do a Pennsylvania wrestling handbook, and because of the internet, we sell fewer and fewer of those. But if you have it, you know what it's like. I have every kid who's returning in the state. What his grade is, where he wrestled last year, what his one-loss record was, where he
it's awesome.
Sectionals, districts, regional, states, plus many more things like the rankings, the tournament rankings of teams in every district, and then statewide, the top 100 wrestlers returning rank, and a list of what kids, what tournaments, the big tournaments, how kids had done. So if you come, let's say, to the King of the Mountain or the Top Hat or whatever tournament you come to, you can look it up and see, here's Johnny Jones. He was third at 160, let's say 189 last year. He was third at 189. And a shout out to Rocco Serafini, because I think he's kind of unheralded. He's a junior. He has some he's tough in all 3 positions. And I think if he's mentally ready, I think he could do well at states.
Awesome. Yeah, he's he's looked good, and Gino's going.
Yeah, Gino's going. Gino's another little story here. Do we have time?
Yeah, we can have all the time you want.
Okay. Gino has some physical problems that the general public doesn't know about, and has to do with kidney, and he's going to eventually have to have a kidney replaced. But just some things with that has kept him in and out of the lineup. So it's just a blessing that he is able to compete, and he's a goer, and he doesn't quit. Sometimes the physical limitations, he's not able to work out as much as he'd like to. So, that's kind of a problem. But seeing him finish second and to lose by a point, I think that was pretty good. Of course, he's wrestled pretty tough kid from over your way too. Do you pronounce it Kearns?
Yeah, Parker Kearns.
Kearns, yeah. I say Kearns and John says Kearns. So,
It's Kearns.
Okay, I was right then. Hell,
So you're right.
But he's really a tough kid. And even though the Hunter Johnson boy he forfeited, and it's not a medical forfeit, by the way. There's no such thing in high school as a medical forfeit. So I don't like to see that term. Medical forfeit means you don't get a loss, but it's a forfeit. You do get a loss. But
you
anyhow,
do get a loss. Yeah.
Hunter Johnson, I think, is a very tough kid, and I look for him to do pretty well too. Those are the two that pop right out at me. Oh, and one other thing too. Every year, Mifflin County seems to come up with a heavyweight that really hasn't been there before much.
I know.
It's really tough, and again, they did it this year. That kid was just amazing. Peyton.
I know Peyton won't mind. Do you know what his it's different world when you're a heavyweight. His pre-tournament meal, after they made weight, you had like Jake Cunningham was chewing on grapes, and Avery Orn had a peanut butter sandwich, and here comes Parker Kearns with a large pizza. and he's slamming down 3 slices of pizza before the morning session. It's like, oh my!
Shouldn't do that in front of his teammates.
It's like, oh my God! But yeah, I mean, he come into the season late because he couldn't make weight, and then he finally made weight. And here, I mean, Dale Sear and Trey Hartsock do a terrific job with the heavyweights, because there's always one, like you said, that comes first year out of nowhere, and they're going to states.
Yeah. So that impresses me about your program over there every year, because you always come up and you always bring some super underclassmen up to the team. So it's like a rebuilding kind of thing rather than.
Well, we got to deal with Central Mountain for a couple more years, so they're ahead of us right now, because everybody forgets that all those 3 hammers are coming back for the Wildcats.
as is Rocco Serafini.
Yeah, and Rocco's coming back.
And Tarantella, who came a long way this year too in his own right at 215, he'll be back. The 107 pounder. Bauman made remarkable strides.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have some kids in the junior high that are good.
Yeah, I think they had 1 loss this year, so they're coming on. And Central Mountain forfeited again, that ugly word, forfeited 121 most of the year, so
that's like Mifflin County didn't have a 107 pounder all year.
Yeah, and that hurts. That really hurts. So.
But I'll tell you what, it's been awesome.
Yes, it has.
Awesome to have you here. The legend, Tom Elling, on the press box. Thank you, sir.
Thank you much for having me. I appreciate it. And good luck down at the States in 2 weeks to the Mifflin County wrestlers.
Same to you with Central Mountain. Hey, when we're down there, you got to cheer for the District 6.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And one other quick thing with Trey Hartsock there, I'm sure the ankle pick is probably being taught too this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Trey's bread and butter.
I still scout the wrestling, so I know pretty much what they do.
It's awesome, Mr. Elling. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Hey,
thank you, Tom.
See you guys.
Anytime you want to come back on, you just let me know.
All right, Kenny, Brian, thanks so much.
All right, see ya. Thank you, Tom. That's Pennsylvania legend in wrestling, Tom Elling, here in the press box. We thank him so much for coming on. Kenny, any last word? It went by too quick this hour.
I'm surprised. Yeah, it was just seems like we just started it, and now we're an hour and 20 minutes in.
20 minutes, yeah.
We could have probably gone to 2 hours and not.
I could have gone way more than 2 hours. But any final words, Kenny?
No, just good luck to all the wrestlers out there this week in the Double A, and I guess we'll see everybody next week.
Yep. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for listening, everybody. And we did have a lot of listeners, Tom.
Oh, good. I hope Bob Howard was one of them.
I hope so too.
Nobody.
I haven't seen him in a long time. If you are listening, Bob, hope you're doing well. That's going to wrap it up for tonight. For Kenny Varner, I'm Brian Carson and Tom Elling. We thank you all for listening. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Night, everyone.